Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're stepping back, aren't we? Right into a proper Victorian thriller. Foggy streets, gaslight.
And a mystery that just won't quit. We're talking Jack the Ripper.
Exactly. We're going deep into the sources, trying to get a feel for what it was really like.
Well, the first thing that jumps out from the material we looked at is just how intense Whitechapel was in 1888.
Intense is a good word. It wasn't just a setting, was it? It felt more like a character in the story itself.
Absolutely. A pressure cooker, really. You've got something like 80,000 people packed into this one area.
80,000, wow.
Yeah, huge population surge, people looking for work, refuge. It created this environment that was, well, already on edge.
And the sources really paint a picture of that struggle, don't they? I mean, serious poverty, lots of drinking.
Alcoholism was rife, yeah. And violence was just part of daily life for many.
It's grim reading about the child mortality rates, too. Over half the kids born in the East End didn't make it to age 5.
It tells you everything about the desperation, doesn't it? Just a brutal fight to survive.
And that poverty, that desperation, it links directly to the victims, right?
It does. It's key. By October 88, the police reckoned there were about 1,200 women working as prostitutes in Whitechapel alone.
1,200. That's a huge number.
And for many, maybe most, it was just about finding the few pennies they needed for a bed for the night.
In one of those common lodging houses. How many were there?
Sources say around 233 in the area. So we're not talking about some romanticized idea of sex work. These were women in really extreme situations.
Which made them incredibly vulnerable.
Tragically so.
Okay, so let's walk through the timeline the sources give us. The victims, everyone links to the Ripper, the Canonical Five.
That's the term often used, yes. Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly.
And the dates span from August to November 1888. The locations are all fairly close together in Whitechapel, too.
They are. And what's really disturbing when you look at the details is this apparent escalation.
Escalation of the violence.
Yes, particularly in the mutilations. With Nichols, the first one, there were severe throat and abdominal wounds.
Bad enough, obviously.
Horrific. But then with Chapman, the next victim, the sources describe much more extensive injuries. Organs removed, even repositioned.
Okay, wow.
Then you get to Eddowes later on, and it's a similar pattern of really severe disfigurement. Plus, her kidney and part of her uterus were taken.
So it keeps getting worse. And then there's Mary Jane Kelly.
Yes. Mary Kelly, the last of the 5. The descriptions of her murder are, well, they're almost unbelievable.
The sources say her face was basically unrecognizable.
Hacked beyond all recognition is one phrase used. And her body was almost completely eviscerated. It's truly gruesome stuff.
That terrifying buildup, that intensity, it really does suggest one person was responsible, doesn't it?
It certainly points strongly in that direction. But then you have Elizabeth Stride.
Right. The exception. What was different there?
Well, like the others, she had her throat cut very deeply. But crucially, she didn't have those awful abdominal injuries that characterize the other 4 canonical victims.
So what does that mean? People have theories, I assume.
Oh, endless speculation. Was the killer interrupted? Maybe someone stumbled upon the scene just after it happened?
That makes sense.
Or was it maybe not the Ripper at all? Perhaps a different killer? It throws a real spanner in the works?
The interruption idea seems quite strong, though, especially given what happened next.
You mean later that same night?
Yeah, the double event, September 30th, 1888. Just, 45 minutes after Stride's body is found?
They find Catherine Eddowes in Mitre Square.
And this time, she did have those terrible mutilations.
Exactly. The kind that were becoming the Ripper's signature. It's like something from a horror film, isn't it? A killer striking twice in such quick succession.
Unbelievable. And the double event, it left behind one of the most debated clues, didn't it?
You're talking about the piece of apron.
Eddowes' apron, yeah. Found in Gulston Street, bloodied. And there was writing on the wall above it.
The Gulston Street graffito. Chalked up, it read, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." With that spelling, Jews.
A really charged message. What did people make of it at the time? The sources must cover the reaction.
Oh, huge controversy. Was it the killer trying to maybe point the finger elsewhere? A really crude attempt at misdirection?
Or just random graffiti that happened to be there. Whitechapel walls were probably covered in stuff like that.
Precisely. It's impossible to know for sure. The ambiguity is, well, it's part of the whole chilling mystery.
And then the police commissioner, Sir Charles Warren, He made a pretty quick decision about it.
He did. He was worried it could spark anti-Semitic riots. The area was already incredibly tense.
So he ordered it washed off.
Before dawn, yes. Washed away. Which means, looking back, a potentially vital clue, however ambiguous it was, just vanished.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You can see why he did it, but still frustrating.
Very frustrating for investigators, then and now.
Now, the fear didn't just stop after Mary Kelly did it. The sources mentioned other murders in Whitechapel later on.
That's right. Rose Mylett, Alice Mackenzie, the Pinchin Street torso, which was particularly gruesome.
Just a torso.
Just a torso found in Pinchin Street. And then Francis Cole's. These happened between late 88 and early 91.
So was it the Ripper still active? Or copycats?
Yeah.
Or just more violence in a violent area?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The methods, the modus operandi in some of these later cases didn't quite match the Canonical Five.
So it just adds more confusion?
Layers upon layers of complexity.
And beyond those 11 official Whitechapel murders, there are other sort of whispers, other names that pop up in the sources, like Fairy Faye.
Ah, yes, Fairy Faye. Sometimes mentioned with a story about a stake driven through the abdomen.
Sounds horrific. Was she real?
Well, the sources we looked at are pretty clear that Fairy Faye seems to be a myth, actually, probably born from confused press reports, maybe mixing up details from an earlier attack on a woman named Emma Elizabeth Smith.
So no actual record of a murder victim matching that description?
Doesn't seem so. It just shows how easily stories could get twisted, especially when people were so scared. Fact and rumor blurring together.
There were women who survived attacks too, weren't there? Annie Millwood? Ada Wilson?
Yes, and an Annie Farmer reported a superficial cut to her throat. Now, were these Ripper attacks? We can't say for sure.
But they add to the general picture of danger for women back then.
Absolutely. It makes it even harder to pin down the Ripper's specific work, you know? It highlights that pervasive fear, that vulnerability. Every shadow could hide a threat.
It really does draw you in, this whole dark period. Folks, if you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as we are, maybe hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, definitely stick with us on Tell Me More for more stories like this.
So, turning to the investigation itself,
Yeah.
the police were facing a huge task, weren't they? But they were trying methods we'd recognize today.
Oh, yeah. House-to-house inquiries, gathering forensic evidence, what little they could back then. The basics were there.
How many people did they actually speak to?
The records suggest over 2,000 people were interviewed. Hundreds investigated more closely. Maybe around 80 were detained at some point.
A massive effort.
Huge. But the killer just seemed to melt away, vanished into the fog, quite literally sometimes.
And the public were getting anxious, frustrated?
Palpably so. You see the formation of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee mentioned in the sources.
Ordinary people taking action.
Exactly. Local business owners, residents, they started their own patrols, even hired private detectives. They just felt the police weren't getting anywhere.
That says a lot about the move, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A lack of faith in the authorities.
Definitely. They even put up their own reward money for information leading to the Ripper's capture, a community pushed to its limits.
Did the police try any sort of profiling, thinking about what kind of person could do this?
They did, actually. There's a fascinating assessment by a police surgeon, Dr. Thomas Bond.
What did he suggest?
Based on examining the victims, he suggested the killer was likely a man of solitary habits, maybe subject to periodical attacks of homicidal and erotic mania.
Wow. That sounds chillingly close to modern ideas of serial killers.
It's considered one of the earliest examples of offender profiling, yeah. Interestingly, Bond argued against the idea the killer had surgical skill. He thought it was more about frenzied violence.
And then there are the letters. We have to talk about the letters. Dear Boss.
Saucy Jacky.
And the From Hell letter. Brrr. These really created the legend, didn't they? But how real were they?
That's the big debate. The Dear Boss letter is where the name Jack the Ripper actually came from.
Right, it gave him the name.
And the Saucy Jacky postcard seemed to kind of taunt the police about the double event, but many experts think they were hoaxes.
Hoaxes by who? Journalists, maybe?
That's a strong theory, trying to keep the story selling papers, you know, sensationalism.
What about the From Hell letter? That one came with a piece of kidney, didn't it?
It supposedly did. A fragment of a human kidney. It's incredibly gruesome, and its authenticity is still fiercely debated. Real or fake, though, those letters had immense power in shaping the myth.
So, stepping back from the fog and the gaslight now, what's the main takeaway from this deep dive into the sources?
Well, it's clearly more than just a series of horrific crimes, isn't it? It's like a snapshot of a society under immense strain. Poverty, social chaos.
And a press, that was just starting to realize its power to shape a narrative, often in a pretty sensational way.
Exactly. And the enduring mystery isn't just about the whodunit, is it? It's the fact that we still don't know.
All the suspects, all the theories over the years.
The letters, the conflicting evidence, it all feeds into this legend that still fascinates and frankly disturbs us. That name, Jack the Ripper, probably born from a hoax, shows how potent that blend of crime and media could be.
Thinking back to those numbers, 1,200 prostitutes, thousands in lodging houses, it really drives home how vulnerable people were, the sheer scale of the poverty.
It really does. And that vigilance committee forming, it's such a clear sign of public desperation, isn't it? People wanting justice, feeling they weren't getting it from the official channels.
Yeah, a real breakdown of trust.
And the fact remains, after all this time, over 100 suspects named, countless books written, it's still unsolved.
Which just highlights how complex it all was and why it still grabs our imagination.
Absolutely. We definitely encourage listeners to explore the sources further, dig into the history, what jumps out at you, what questions still stick in your mind.
Maybe the most chilling thing isn't just who the killer was, but what the whole affair showed us about Victorian London, warts and all.
A very dark reflection, certainly. It forces us to look at the society that allowed these things to happen.